After being asleep since my last video, which you should see before you see this one, the crew of the Sulaco wake up and we are introduced to the 12 Marines and their android servant who have no idea what they are getting into. Due to the runtime of the movie, we don't get to know all of them, but thanks to the film novel, the actors' interviews, and behind-the-scenes material, we can get some insights. First up is Android Executive Officer Lance Bishop, who was initially going to be introduced walking around the Sulaco alone, mining the ship and crew. I wonder who copied this format in a later Alien film. Anyways, Lance Henriksen attested that Bishop basically believes that if he made a single mistake, he might be deactivated or replaced. And because of this, he shows the utmost respect for everything living and serves anything to the highest ability possible. Pleasing others is his core motivation, and Henriksen really got into the idea of playing the android as an innocent. He even took it upon himself to get creative about playing an android, and had contacts made for his eyes to look less human. Cameron thought it was a bit too much. In the novel, Bishop was actually alone and he woke the crew up from sleep, thus echoing the original concept. The first line from those waking was supposed to be Dropship Crew Chief Daniel Spunkmeyer, who actually has a lot more dialogue in the film compared to most of the Marines. Spunkmeyer would wake up and say,
"I'm getting too old for this shit."
The novel stated that no one responds to him because the entire team suspects, or knows, that he enlisted in the Corps while he was underage and he's trying to sound older. But he was a competent pilot for the team, so no one complained. The shot we all remember is Master Sergeant Alexander A. Pone putting his cigar in his mouth, and that visual makes it clear that he's a hardcore Marine, and the moment he speaks, you know he's in charge. For those unfamiliar with Pone, he was played by the late Al Matthews, who you might remember for Fifth Element or Superman 3.
How bad is it? My God, Superman, it's a nightmare. Everything in there is either explosive or inflammable or worse.
He was a decorated Vietnam vet who basically took command of the actors playing Marines and made standards that they needed to portray to be convincing Marines. He was instrumental for this film. He was on the actors constantly, and the crew of Marines looked at him like he was their leader on set beyond James Cameron. Mark Drake is next. To cover Drake, we also need to bring up Vasquez because their story is intertwined. Jeanette Goldstein stated that her character and Drake's came from the same place and looked out for each other. Rolston said they were recruited from juvenile prison and were serving life sentences for murder. Unlike the other Marines, the two characters had no date to leave the Marines. In their mind, it was better than prison. However, this made the two characters apart from the other Marines because they were stuck there for an undetermined amount of time. The film also suggests a romantic relationship between the two because Drake calls Vasquez baby.
All right, people, on the ready line.
Responding to Drake's complaint is MedTech Cynthia Dietrich.
Not enough to have to wake up to your face, Drake.
What? Is that a joke?
Oh, wish it were.
Dietrich has little backstory, but lots of behind-the-scenes information. Cynthia Dale Scott originally tried out for Vasquez's part. Instead, she got the part for Corporal Farrow. However, the filmmakers changed their mind yet again and made her play Dietrich, telling the actress that it was a bigger role. Scott also had a run-in with James Cameron's blunt approach during an event where the crew got together for a table read of the film. Everyone was in plain clothes, but Scott wore lip gloss. Cameron made a point to approach her and said, "You have lip gloss on. Marines don't wear lip gloss." Next up was Hicks.
Hey, Hicks. Man, you look just like I feel.
It's no secret that Hicks was first played by James Remar, who was a veteran of Walter Hill films and was currently battling drug habits. Perhaps a foreshadow of his problem was attributed to an event that happened on the set while Remar was unaware of his shotgun prop. He was fiddling with the weapon near Frank Oz's set of Little Shop of Horrors, which neighbored Aliens at the time. The weapon went off and blew a hole in the wall. Al Matthews was quickly upon Remar, berating him, and Al was noted to have said, "Where the fuck did you get live ammo?" Remar would not last long, though. He would be discovered and was arrested for drug possession. Accounts vary. For instance, if you watch the Movies That Made Us series, it claims police raided his hotel. Other behind-the-scenes material, like the making of Aliens, claim he was at a pub with Bill Paxton and his stash was found and the police were called. Whatever the case, within a few days Michael Biehn replaced him in the role. When Remar returned to America, he tried his best to keep things under wrap, and in a 1986 Starlog magazine interview, he said that he came home to take care of problems and focused on the movie The Band of the Hand instead. Later, Remar would come clean about the situation. As for the character itself, Michael Biehn had no time to make a backstory and just played the part naturally, which was a lot like Kyle Reese from Terminator. Private First Class William L. Hudson was a combat technician. Bill Paxton said his character was raised by a single mother and that he had a low IQ. He wanted to be a pilot but wasn't smart enough, so he joined the Marines instead. In 4 weeks, he was to be done with his tour of duty.
Oh man, I was getting short. 4 more weeks and out. Now I'm gonna bite on this rock. It ain't half fair, man. Give us a break. 4 more weeks.
Following Hudson is Robert Frost. According to the film novel, Frost has a way with words and is one of the youngest on the team. Originally, actor Rico Ross was offered the part of Drake, but he turned it down to be in Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. Cameron really liked Ross, and he wrote a part for him specifically. This honor was then accepted, and Rico left Full Metal Jacket to be in Aliens. Corporal Colette Farrow is the pilot of the Bug Stomper dropship. This character seems a bit unimpressed and less open towards others, as we see her in many scenes being dismissive or annoyed by comments, such as Apone talking about the Marines as if it's wonderful.
I love the Corps.
Man, this floor is freezing.
She sardonically states that Ripley apparently saw an alien and then chuckles about it.
She's supposed to be some kind of consultant. Apparently, she saw an alien once.
Whoopie fucking do.
When Gorman gives his orders to the team, Farrow visually and verbally responds in contempt to his deadline.
I want DCS and tactical database assimilation by 0830. Ordnance loading, weapon strip, and dropship prep details will have 7 hours.
Finally, when Spunkmeyer is not in the cockpit, she is impatient with him.
Hold on a second, there's something.
Just get up here.
This shortness would continue in the next scene.
Spunkmeyer.
God damn it. Well, where the fuck?
That's no way to talk to an alien. Ironically, this great pilot has a lucky rabbit's foot, which didn't serve her well in the end. There are 2 other Marines in the unit which have very small appearances. The first is Private Tim Crow, who is played by a British SAS soldier who helped train the cast with Al Matthews. You can see Crow getting ready in the locker room, and he is the soldier that dies when the ammunition goes off. Hicks is the one who turns over his body. After this clip, we see the fate of our last vague Marine, Private Trevor Wierzbowski, who is taken by the aliens after the explosion.
Wierzbowski! Wierzbowski!
There is very little on this character except that there is deleted footage where Hicks propped him up against a wall after being wounded, and then he ran to check on Crow to find him dead before Wierzbowski was taken by the aliens. In the film, Wisbowski tried to salvage the ammo but realized it was too late when he was pulled away by Hicks. That's something that Crow didn't understand until it was too late. Besides that, I can only tell you from official film material that Wierzbowski didn't like Gorman's timeline to get things done. As Gorman walks away, it is Wierzbowski who flips Gorman the bird behind his back. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment. Also, Wierzbowski had a lot more lines in the novelization. An interesting thing about this character is that there is a Facebook group called Wierzbowski Hunters, who track a lot of alien stuff and post anything relating to this character. Now that you have been introduced to all the Marines, the scenes pretty much play out calmly, with Vasquez getting to show off her strength, not only physically, but socially, especially when Hudson asks her if she's ever been mistaken to be a man.
No. Have you?
Oh, Vasquez. He just too bad.
When the team is eating chow, there is a vague suggestion that they are familiar with alien life forms. They mention a race known as the Octurians, which is actually a non-human species that was the first contacted aliens in this universe.
You sure wouldn't mind getting some more of that Arcturian poontang. Remember that time?
Yeah, Frost, the one that you had was male.
It doesn't matter when it's Arcturian, baby.
A bunch of books go into detail about the race, but since it's not in the film or related material, I won't get into details. This means that beyond the xenomorphs, there are engineers, predators, and the Octurians inhabiting the alien universe. There is also very contentious debates that the Na'vi from James Cameron's Avatar inhabit this franchise as well. Some cite that the official script from Avatar vaguely referred to a capitalized alien as being no match for the six-legged Thantor beast in Avatar. Others cite similarities between the films in that Earth is a crap hole and the tech used in both films look very similar to each other. There are more details as well, but whatever side you're on is fine with me. I like to muse that Avatar is in the same universe, but I don't hold that opinion as factual in any way. Bishop's knife gag was directly done as a nod to the Dark Star character Boiler, who was bored and decided to play with a knife the same way seen in this film. Henriksen was good at doing this, but to give it a more android feel, the frames of the film was sped up, and there are tells for this. In this slowed down clip, look at Apone's head. Now notice how it doesn't look right in a normal version. It's another blink and you'll miss it moment. After Ripley berates Bishop, you can hear more comments about the cornbread.
Guess you don't like the cornbread either.
This was also done to honor the classic Alien film where Ripley offers cornbread in the background during breakfast, and the crew speaks about how the food is not very good.
Here's some cornbread.
The first thing that I'm going to do when I get back is to get some decent food.
It seems the future hasn't gotten any better where food is concerned because the Marines talk about how bad the chow is, just like the Nostromo crew did.
What's this crap supposed to be?
Cornbread, I think.
Now these Marines are good and they're confident, so much so that Vasquez doesn't want to hear the details and just wants to know where to point her gun. When she says this line, look closely at Hicks's character behind her. He repeats her line, and many state that this is a mistake where he repeated her line while filming.
I only need to know one thing. Where they are.
Joe Vasquez, kick ass.
Anytime, anywhere.
This may be so, but it also might be a common thing that she says, and he is just mimicking her. I won't assume which one is fact. Like the last film, I still can't believe how well this movie has dated. The practical effects look great. An interesting note is that in the last video I mentioned there is a foreshadow for Ripley's knowledge about using the power loader. When she uses the machine to help the Marines and befriend Apone and Hicks, it would be easy to assume that this was the reason for introducing us to this scene. However, this is just a fake out in retrospect, as we learn she uses this to fight the Queen, and we are just further enhancing her proficiency with the machine. It's really smart writing. For the rest of the film, you get to see the Marines in their gear. Now, I'm not going to go over the details of their outfits because it would take another 10 minutes of this video to do so. With that said, it's real fun looking and finding these details, and many of them have significant meanings to the actors or for the characters they play. As we descend into the atmosphere in the Bug Stomper, yes, that is what the dropship is called, and it even has a catchphrase.
So I did a big cartoon of an eagle, which was to go on the side of the nose of the dropship, and then the slogan was, "We endanger species."
We then come to another extended clip where Hudson is pumping himself up with adrenaline as he tries to impress Ripley with their badassery. Paxton is just insanely fun in this scene, and every scene after pretty much, and most will agree that he steals the show. The scene is not necessary for the film, but I'm glad it's in the director's cut nonetheless. On a narrative level, it just shows the overconfidence of this group, and how they are not prepared for the kind of combat that is coming. The first scene that really shows a hint of Burke's duality is actually as the dropship approaches. To this point, Burke has appeared nothing but helpful to Ripley, and even, presumably, the colony. As they approach the colony, Ripley notes the atmosphere processor, and Burke shows his pride in the device and the company. You can see Ripley turning to him, most likely pondering over the fact that he sounds like a Weyland-Yutani exec for the first time since she's known him.
Yep, that's it. Remarkable piece of machinery, completely automated. You know, we manufacture those, by the way.
As the team approaches the facility, we discover that Hudson is the group's tech. He uses his tools, which is shown above, to bypass the doors, and basically anything that has to do with computers involves Hudson, as that's his specialty. It's funny how the IT guy is the one who is acting with bravado, and then when things go south, he's cowardly. Hudson's technical talents are later utilized by Ripley to keep Hudson distracted from his panic. As the group secures the facility, there are a few things to note. Upon arriving, Apone notes that the damage to the facility appears to be small arms fire and seismic survey charges.
So you copying this? Looks like hits from small arms fire. We got some explosives damages, probably seismic survey charges.
In the novel, it also mentions that Apone believes pulse rifles were used to defend the colony as well. One thing to notice is that when Gorman orders search by twos, Apone directs Vasquez and Hudson to team up, and then sends Wierzbowski to search by himself. Obviously, he can handle things himself, so he must be one of the real badasses of the team, or he really got the short end of the stick during this instance. There are a few extended and deleted scenes during the exploration of the facility, and the first occurs as Burke is watching Drake go through a disheveled room. He offers this insight.
Looks like my room in college.
This scene really doesn't work in my opinion, as we are supposed to be tense and curious during these scenes, and having Burke crack jokes really destroys the tone. The next extended scene has a similar problem as Vasquez and Hudson are closing in on something moving, and they discover it to be no threat.
Good one, Hudson.
Sir, we have a negative situation here. We're moving on, sir.
In the novel, it's stated that their motion tracker homed in on a junction box swinging back and forth in the wind, and Vasquez stated how she hated motion trackers. I think the junction box would have been more effective for two reasons. One, we don't need jokes like the previous cut scene during these tense moments, and two, it would make the colony feel more lifeless if they didn't find a living thing up until Newt, thus creating a more ominous feel. Still, I don't mind the extended scene as it is. When Ripley enters the facility, her acting is just wonderful. Before she enters, the trepidation she shows is palpable, and Hicks shows his humanity by having concern for her. However, I think Sigourney really hits the ball out of the park with this scene. Watch her eyes and body movement. You can see real fear and paranoia in this performance. She's very anxious. She was well deserving of an Academy Award nomination for this film. In another cut scene, when the team finds Newt, everyone wants to help the girl. But the cold, heartless Drake shows his true colors when he says,
Better go, man. Who cares?
What an asshole.
After Dietrich notes that Newt has some malnutrition problems, Ripley begins a conversation with Newt that's quite one-sided. Newt doesn't talk much. In a cut scene, Ripley has this to say about that.
You don't talk much, do you? It's all right with me. Most people talk a lot and they wind up not saying anything.
After their dialogue, Hicks comes over to tell them it's time to leave, and a scene they should have kept in the movie was this.
Hey! Shit. Hicks! Newt? No!
Hope she ain't got rabies.
Showing Newt desperate to get back to her hiding hole would match the reality of the situation. She witnessed adults trying to deal with the alien threat before, and it's doubtful she would have much faith in this new group also. Regardless, she is dragged with the group into the atmosphere processor, where the team discovers the alien hive. During this shot, you get the only glimpse of James Remar that survived to the final cut. The shot with the hive was an in-camera effect, and it could not be reduplicated after Remar left the project. During the shoot, Remar turned to the camera, so this shot was cut to not reveal his face. Also, during this scene, Gorman turns to Ripley asking what it is, since she's the expert on these things. In the novel, her response is this: I really don't know. I think I've seen something like it once before, but I'm not sure. It's different somehow, more elaborate. And it is then that Gorman impatiently berates Ripley and tells his team to continue inside the hive. The query would continue when MedTech Dietrich would ask, "Looks like some kind of secreted glue. Your bad guys spit this stuff out, or what, Ripley?" To which Ripley would respond, I don't know how it's manufactured, but I've seen it before, on a much smaller scale. Back in 1986, this was a big deal for Alien followers because it verified that the rumored cocoon scene existed with Dallas. And back then, this meant that the scene was canon. Today, the scene is debated, but there was no debate in the 80s that when an alien is away from its queen, it can go to extremes to propagate its race. Now, one thing I had a hard time with is the disarmament scene. By taking all the weapons away, many of the Marines had little defense, like Hudson and Frost, who each had pistols when the fight erupted. Hicks only had a shotgun that was left over from his family. The others mainly had flamethrowers, which is very important. The exception to this is Apone, who took Frost's flamethrower just before the attack began. Most with sense and self-preservation would redeploy rather than engage under those circumstances, especially when it is a known fact that there are many creatures running around that overtook a colony per the evidence of the operations facility and Ripley's testimony. However, the fact that people were disarmed somewhat is very relevant when the engagement begins in the hive. First off, I want you to know that the aliens must know there are people walking around in their lair. They are not whispering, and Apone is even raising his voice so all can hear.
Is he fucking crazy?
All right, sweethearts, you heard the man. Pull him out. Come on, let's have him.
Not to mention the clanking of ammo clips.
Let's go, Marine. Give it up. Frost, you got the duty. Open that bag.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Next, cover our ass.
And the cocking of a shotgun.
I'd like to keep this handy for close encounters.
And most of all, let's not forget when Dietrich yells out to the group, "I have a live one."
What?
Tom, get over here, we got a live one!
The aliens didn't attack then. They waited. They are in an echoing facility, and no one needs to yell to hear each other. The alien was shown to be very responsive to sound in the first film, and later installments made it a fact that if you made the slightest sound anywhere, the xenomorphs were sure to check it out. It is a staple of the xenobiology, and this means that the aliens know they are there. So why the hell are the aliens not attacking? I propose that they are watching the group, and I say this because the creatures do very specific things once the battle begins. The trick to understanding this engagement is to think like the aliens. I once remember someone stating somewhere that to understand this fight, you have to follow who has what weapons and who is the biggest threat. Then you will see a pattern of intelligence. A lot of folks believe that after Alien, the xenomorphs become mindless carnivores who just want to be around their mother and have little intelligence. I partially share this view. However, this fight does not emulate that theory whatsoever. So let me walk you through this. The aliens do not engage until one of their kind is killed. You could argue they were sleeping, but how is this the case after Dietrich yelled so loudly about finding a survivor in a fairly quiet facility? The aliens do move into position, but they do so stealthily. So much so that the group is surrounded and everyone debates the situation.
I got signals, I got readings in front and behind.
Where, man? I don't see shit.
He's right, there's nothing back here.
Look, I'm telling you, there's something moving and it ain't us.
The first to be killed is Dietrich, and if you notice, the alien waits till her back is turned, and notice that she is not facing an area where there is a hive in front of her. When she dies, she flames frost, which is a fortunate bonus for the creature. However, I want you to notice two things. When she fires, she does not hit any of the hive. Instead, it fires into an open area. Also, for insane detail, you can see the alien's legs propelling it up the wall as it takes her away. It's another blink and you'll miss it scene. Also, another insane blink and you'll miss it scene is when Frost falls into the depths. When he gets to the bottom, a shoe can be seen jutting out during the take. Cameron may be a perfectionist, but this was missed, and despite my research, I don't know why. Anyone know any details on this gaffe? When the aliens fought the colonists, they saw small firearms like what Frost and Hudson is using. These weapons are like knives to the alien, and we know this because when Vasquez uses a pistol on an alien's head, she shoots it several times and seriously wounds it, but it is still moving around. A pistol needs accuracy and repetitive hits to be successful. No doubt anyone using this kind of weapon is not a threat to the creatures. The novel suggests that these creatures saw pulse rifles as well. But regardless whether this is canon or not, no one should have ammo for these weapons. It's most likely a given the aliens don't comprehend that fact, though. What they do understand is that the flamethrower not only torched their spawn, but it burned and damaged everything around it. With such high temperatures, it will also melt whatever it comes in contact with, whether that be flesh, the hive, or the walls. So let's take a look at the kill order. Dietrich is first, and she has a flamethrower. Dietrich kills Frost by mistake, and as a result, Crow is killed by the ammunition proximity, and Wierzbowski is thrown from the blast as well. The second Marine nullified by the aliens is Wierzbowski, who has a flamethrower.
Wierzbowski! Wierzbowski!
Once things get hairy, Vasquez and Drake let loose, and they do kill aliens, but their smart guns are probably not damaging the hive. Do the aliens then take them out? No. Instead, they go after Apone, who is not only the leader, but he has a flamethrower too. Are you seeing a pattern here? The aliens are protecting the nest and nullifying anything that can further damage their domain. That is their first priority. Now I need to note that Drake has a flamethrower too, but he is not using it and it is slung. No doubt this helped him survive longer, in my opinion. When all the flamethrowers are gone, the aliens go after the next biggest threat, and that is Vasquez and Drake, who can hold them back. That doesn't mean there are stragglers that threaten Hicks or Hudson, who is caught in the crossfire, because we hear Hicks shooting at one of the creatures. Taking all this into account, the aliens are not mindless in this movie. There is a clear strategy they employ. In fact, because they can't even approach Vasquez and Drake directly, one lays in wait and tries to strike when they are not next to each other. Though it dies, it does take Drake with it. Now you can say this last encounter is chance, but it is established that aliens communicate with a hive mind, and Alien Resurrection goes all in on this concept. Because of this, I put forth the theory that this alien was told they were coming and to pounce at the opportune moment. During the escape, Gorman is knocked unconscious by Gear. However, in the film novel, Gorman was actually stung by an alien's tail. Though this has never been explored in later films, some suggest that this is how the creatures stun people and cocoon them. I think this makes the creatures too similar to insects and prefer what they showed in the movie. Now, one thing I skipped over was another moment Burke was positioned as an ally of Ripley yet again, to throw us off the scent of who he really is. When Ripley takes over the APC, Gorman tries to stop her, and Burke stops him and states,
You had your chance, Gorman.
This is just another example of the smart writing at play. This would change when everyone is discussing their situation and Burke comes to the defense of the aliens. After calling Hicks a grunt, he pretty much loses all ground, and we begin to see the dark side of this character for the first time in the theatrical cut. With nothing left to do, the Bug Stomper is summoned to pick up the group, and we know this ship is at operations because Spunkmeyer was delivering supplies to Bishop while he was examining the facehugger. The alien that got on board the ship is most likely a scout of some sort, and it spells doom for the craft. This leaves our survivors in quite a pickle. However, good comes from all this in the end because we get some wonderfully memed lines as a result of the tragedy.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
After salvaging what they can to utilize for the upcoming fight, Hudson begins his meltdown until Ripley forces him into the right direction by making him utilize his talents with computers to research ways into the facility. This distracts him from his fear.
Are you listening?
Yeah.
I need to see air ducts. I need to see electrical access tunnels, sub-basements, every possible way into this complex.
The entire sentry gun scenes was not in the theatrical cut. This is one of those areas of the film where one can state that the aliens must be brainless to keep running towards these guns with lots of ammo, thus sacrificing countless numbers to get to a few humans. However, a full frontal assault is not something unknown to humans from much of history, so this argument doesn't really hold water. Losses are expected, and how would the aliens know how many humans are holed up in the operations center in the first place to compare their losses? For all they know, these humans are here to take out their nest since they were technically invaded, and should act accordingly. The sentry guns are helpful to the film in the long run because it gives us a small sense of security and some time to focus on character moments, such as Ripley and Newt taking time to bond and Burke's treachery being revealed. Without the sentry guns, why on earth would any of them relax or focus on anything but desperate defense? So having the sentry guns in the movie makes complete sense. When Ripley and Newt bond, It is a very relevant scene for both Newt and Ripley. Ripley failed her last daughter and now has a second chance with this girl. It also gives her the opportunity to focus on this girl over her fears, and because of this, she will stop at nothing to get her off this hellish planet. In an extended scene, Newt asks about Ripley's daughter to push this point home. Although the scene shouldn't be needed to identify this theme, it doesn't hurt having it in the film either. In the next scene, Bishop explains that alien acid loses its potency very quickly when exposed to air, but originally, the scene intended to explore the concept of the alien sting, which paralyzed Gorman. This is why Ripley quickly said this after the acid information.
Bishop, you know, that's very interesting, but it doesn't really get us anywhere, does it? Trying to figure out what we're dealing with here. They grab the colonists, they move them over there, and they immobilize them to be hosts for more of these.
The group then discusses how eggs are made in an extended cut, and the idea of a queen is introduced. I like the addition of the talk, but I still prefer the theatrical version because the idea of a queen is more vague, and Bishop simply refers to the origin of the eggs as...
I'm not sure. It must be something we haven't seen yet.
When Ripley requests to destroy the specimens, Bishop has this to say.
Mr. Burke gave instructions that they were to be kept alive in stasis for return to the company labs. He was very specific about it.
When Bishop reveals this, Burke's jig is up, and Ripley has no qualms confronting him. An awesome part about this scene was what was cut out of it. When Ripley cornered Burke, he tries to defend his position by saying,
"What if that ship didn't even exist? Did you ever think about that? I didn't know."
After this line, Ripley stated that the shuttle Narcissus's recorder was tampered with, and that she complained about that with the board. She point blank asks Burke if he knew anything about it, to which he simply evades the question and states,
"So now if I went and made a major security situation out of it, everybody steps in, administration steps in, and there's no exclusive rights for anybody. Nobody wins. So I made a decision and it was wrong. It was a bad call, Ripley."
This moment hit many on their first view of the film right in the stomach. Many, like myself, thought Burke was an ally of Ripley, only to discover that he not only betrayed her from the beginning, but killed everyone in the colony and is planning to kill more to smuggle the creature back to Earth. Burke's plan is a bit dicey, though, as he intends to kill everyone to do this, and I never quite understood this, as there's a good chance he doesn't know how to pilot a ship in emergency, or know medicine, or even how to communicate via the bridge of a ship. And what if the creature birthed during hypersleep or before? He seemed to have no fear of the creature and simply assumed things would go his way. Still, the details of his plans are not out of the realm of minuscule believability, so I'm not going to make a big deal about it and move on. An interesting thing to note is after the first set of ammo guns use up their ammo, the film takes note to point out that the aliens reached the pressure door.
They're at the pressure door.
Yeah, listen to that.
After Bishop shows them the emergency venting and the looming explosion, the group talk about uplinking to the ship to get out of Dodge. At the end of the discussion, where Bishop volunteers, there is cut footage not in either version of the film where the pressure door situation is concluded.
Believe me, I'd prefer not to. I may be synthetic, but I'm not stupid.
Let's get on with it. What do you know?
Listen, stop.
They're in the complex.
Now that the creatures are in the complex and Ripley knows how to use a pulse rifle, she decides to take a nap. Therefore, if she's tired, I guess we are too, and thus here ends another video. Don't worry, in less than a month, the final part will arrive.
4 more weeks.
I couldn't agree more, Hudson. We'll see you next time. If you like what you see here, click like and subscribe.